So was Jesus real, and was he God? Out of all the questions that we've looked at, and we will continue to look at here at Shadowless, this is the most pivotal question that we need to address. Everything else is based on this one question. The first thing I want you to understand is that, was he real? There isn't a historian or expert that believes otherwise. Whether you're talking Christian, atheist, no matter what the walk of life is, everybody that's looked at the subject agrees that Jesus was alive, Jesus had a ministry, that Jesus died on the cross. Even if you look at some of the most key atheist people in the world today that have really truly looked at the subject, you will see these claims. You've got Bart Ehrman, who goes as far to say as that Jesus' death on the cross is one of the most certain facts in history. And then you've got Jared Ludman, who will turn around and say that Jesus' death as a result of the crucifixion is undisputable. You see, there is no doubt that Christ lived. But we need to go much further than that, because if he lived, that only gets us to a man. Even John said that if our belief in God, if our hope in Jesus is just on this side of the cross, then we are to be pitied. He actually goes further than that. He says we are to be the most pitied. So if you think of somebody that you know that is going through hardship or has went through hardship, whether it's they're battling for their life for cancer, or they've lost the most dearest person to them, and you feel that pity that you have for them, John said that this should be much more than that. That's the level of everything that we're putting on this emphasis. So when we look at it, his life is not enough. We need to know, did he actually claim to be God, first of all? Did Jesus claim to be God? Of course he did. Why do you think they killed him? They didn't kill him because he was a good teacher, because he was a nice man. My father is both of those. Do we kill him for that? They killed him because of who he claimed to be. He claimed to be the Son of God. They claimed to be the Son of Man. He claimed to be able to forgive sins. He claimed to be God. He claimed to be one of the Trinity. So that we see that he did exist and that he does claim to be God. But can he prove it? We're going to take this many different ways, but let's look at just 3 ways that he proved it. The first is through prophecy. You see, I love spy movies and that type of show. And one thing that you see in every movie is you will see 2 spies that have to meet. So they go somewhere, they set up these rules that have to be set in place, these tests that you can run so that they know that they're meeting the right person when they don't know each other. It can be a certain color shirt that you wear, a hat that you wear, the place that you meet, and then key phrases that have to be said. That's the test, so that you can know undeniably that this person that you're meeting is who you are set to meet. And that's what's going on here. Hundreds of years before Christ was ever born, all of these prophecies were set in place so that we knew without a shadow of a doubt that when somebody fulfills these prophecies, that they are none other than the Messiah. They are none other than God. And when we look at these, and we look at the odds of somebody fulfilling these, they're astronomical if they're not God. A man by the name of Peter Stoner asked many of his students, right around 600 students that were math students, to run the odds of somebody that is not the Messiah fulfilling just 8 of the prophecies, and taking it at a very conservative level. What he found was that when they actually ran the numbers, just to fulfill 8, the odds are 1 in 100 million billion. Would you buy a lottery ticket if those were the odds? Of course not. But what does this number actually look like? This is a number we can't fathom. Now, just to give you an idea, if you were to take the entire globe, and if you were to cover it with tiles that are 1.5 inches square, and you were to take and mark one tile with an X, blindfold somebody and have them walk the entire face of the earth to try and find that one tile on the first try. That's the odds that we're dealing with of somebody that is not the Messiah fulfilling just 8 of the prophecies. What happens if we look at just 48 of the 300 plus prophecies? Then our odds go up much more. Then we're looking at odds more on the line of 1 in a trillion, 12 trillions. That's the odds that we have to deal with. So when we look at this, we can know that prophecy shows that Jesus was the Messiah. But we have to go much further than that. Look at some of the other things that are going on in that time. Imagine reading this and hearing this and being told that, after Jesus was resurrected, which the prophecy said that he would be, and he said that he would be, there is over 500 people that saw him at one time. Over 500 people. See, this is important because this is another way that we see that, don't just take our word for it. Jesus is saying, don't just take my word for it, but you go and talk to them. Look, here's over 500 people. Go and ask. We see this over and over and over again. God says that I am the creator of everything. Look at the creation and see me. Jesus is saying, I am risen. Look at these people and see me. Now we can take it even further. We can say that, okay, so Jesus fulfills the prophecies. And now there's these witnesses that see it. Well, let's look at it in a trial sense. Bring in all of these witnesses. If you gave them just 15 minutes each on the stand, do you realize you would have about 125 hours worth of testimony of what they saw when they saw the risen Christ? That's over, if you had 40-hour work weeks, that's over 3 of them. Just listening to testimony after testimony after testimony of what they saw when they saw the risen Christ. So if we have him fulfilling prophecies, and if we have everybody seeing him, then what we should expect to see and what we do see is influence and an impact in the society and the people around. Right? We have the explosion of the church. But we also have a change in people. Let's look at just 2 of them. First, let's look at Saul. Saul enjoyed being a Roman that was sent out to find Christians, try and execute them. That's what he found joy in. He had a position of power with the Romans. He walked away from all of that. Why? Because on the road, he ends up running into Christ himself. So he appears to Saul, who later changes his name to Paul, and then starts leading people to Christ, all the way to the point where he is willing to give his life for it. He is beheaded. What about when we look at James? Right? This is Jesus' own brother who before the crucifixion and resurrection denounced Jesus. Right? He's saying, I grew up with you. You are not God. Only once he saw the risen Jesus, after he watches him die on the cross, and you won't find a medical professional that will say that you could have survived the cross. So James watches him die, and now he sees him resurrected. He sees him made new, and he is willing to give his life for it. See, we won't give our lives for something that is not true. We may misunderstand something and being willing to give our lives for it. We may misunderstand truth and be willing to crash a plane into a tower. But there's a big difference between between following something that you believe to be true and witnessing something and giving your life for it and not being willing to denounce it. So I hope you see through this that we can put this to many tests. And this is just a small aspect. We'll do a larger video later on this subject. They'll go more in depth. But see, this is what we do. We take the truth, we pull it out of the shadows here at Shadowless. I really hope you tune in to our next video. God bless.